Hey everybody, what's going on? This is episode 5 of Cook's Corner, and today I'll be breaking down why the number 12 seeds found success in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup play-in. When you look at the two number 12 seeds, the Chicago Blackhawks and the Montreal Canadiens, you didn't really think that either of them would be around too long in the Stanley Cup play-in. When you look at both of their opponents, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Edmonton Oilers, they have one thing in common, and that's superstar talent down the middle of the ice. You have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl for the Edmonton Oilers, and you have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, if there's ever a such thing as a quiet three-point outing, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid both had that yesterday in their loss to the Chicago Blackhawks. Both managed 3 points, all on the power play, and it just didn't seem like either were engaged at 5-on-5, and that's where the Hawks certainly took advantage. The Hawks were certainly the better team at 5-on-5 yesterday, and that caused them to get some power plays, and when they did get to the man advantage, they made the Oilers pay. Hawks rookie Dominik Kubalik had an all-world showing on the power play yesterday. He had just 13 minutes of ice time, but when he was on the ice, they outshot opponents 11-1, and it ultimately totaled for 5 points in the rookie's playoff debut for the Blackhawks. Now, it's not often you see a 20-year-old centerman under Claude Julien leading the Canadiens in ice time, but that's exactly what Nick Suzuki did yesterday. Now, if you look closer into things, there's actually a lot of similarities between the Blackhawks and the Canadiens that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about. You have two stars underperforming on their contracts in Jonathan Toews and Carey Price, but both showed up when the stage mattered yesterday. With that being said, there still are differences between the players. Toews has led his team to 3 Stanley Cups, while Price is still looking for that first ring. But the question still needs to be asked, why and how? The Edmonton Oilers and the Pittsburgh Penguins were both heavy favorites in yesterday's contest, and both came out on the losing end of things. So why is that? For the Oilers, it was pretty clear that despite taking a 1-0 lead over the Hawks after a power play goal by McDavid, that they just didn't have their legs 5-on-5, and that was going to be a problem for the Hawks, who clearly had a track meet in mind from the beginning. Of course, they also wanted to stay out of the penalty box because we all know how lethal that Edmonton power play is. The scary thing for Oilers fans is that we really didn't even see the best that Corey Crawford can be, and we know that's on a whole different level. On the other side of things, the Canadiens used their top 2 centers, Philip Deneau and Nick Suzuki, to help neutralize Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, and they did a pretty damn good job yesterday. Where the Canadiens found their biggest advantage yesterday was with the line of Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Arturi Lehkonen, and Paul Byron, which completely caved in the line of Jared McCann, Patrick Marleau, and Patrick Hornqvist all night. You combine that with the disaster of a third pairing in Justin Schultz and Jack Johnson, and you can see why the Pittsburgh Penguins failed in Game 1 of this series. Matt Murray wasn't his usual self for the Penguins either, and I still think they should have started Tristan Jarry, but it did make sense given the history and postseason success that Matt Murray has had with the Penguins organization. Now, there's certainly a gap between top teams and bottom teams, but how big really is that gap? I think it showed in yesterday's game that it's not as big as it seems to be perceived a lot of the time. Veterans like Carey Price, Shea Weber, Jonathan Toews, and Duncan Keith, and you combine them with youngsters like Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Nick Suzuki, and Dominik Kubalik, and they prove to you that maybe the future and the present aren't too bleak for these two historic organizations. From Cook's Corner, this is Zach Cook, signing off.